This is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic, it's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform and shares a lot of information to a broader audience. So we wish you all the best and please continue serving
AAU TV,
the voice of higher education in Africa.
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic, it's educative, it's informative, and it is
so that we groom the next generation of leaders as we move on. A key issue that resonated at the session was accountability, and the lack of which is a bane to institutional development. For instance, it was noticed that in African universities, there is a perception that the lecturers are only interested in teaching and then they move on to do their private work. So the recommendation that came was that universities should institute annual competence assessment at all levels in order to eliminate incompetence and only enable qualified talent to be retained. Again, the session recommended that pilot programs are needed to subject the university leadership to an assessment of their tenure based on their visions and the university's strategic plan. Effective coordination was also highlighted, and here the role of the university boards or academic boards was emphasized, that they should understand their roles as trustees and they should anchor their activities around the university's mission and assist in fundraising. On sustainable funding, which was also highlighted, The session noted the decreasing state funding for education against pressing priorities, and that when a university is running on a shoestring budget, is going to lead to their unsustainability. So the recommendation there was that universities should champion their own initiatives to generate sustainable sources of income. Another issue that came up was the curriculum. And it was noted emphatically that the African university curriculum was outdated and was therefore unattractive to the academic diaspora to be roped in. So it was recommended that a more responsive curriculum is needed that will help students navigate through real-life situations. We also need to experiment with the flipped learning concept to restructure our classroom, whilst factoring in contemporary changes such as the use of the mobile devices. Again, it was recommended that the duration of courses that will be facilitated on mobile devices have to be looked at and possibly reduced. Another issue was strategic enrollment into our universities, where the role of the youth was seen as very strategic in strengthening the higher education management system. So universities were urged to be very creative about the courses that they run, including running certificate courses and weekend programs. And that to have strategic enrollments, universities also need to reach out to the business sector with offers of courses that would develop them and their technologies. Again, it was noted that there are a lot of innovators and inventors in Africa who are outside the confines of the university, but whose works are addressing current needs on the continent. So universities need to identify these and rope them in. On partnerships, there's the same partnerships with the private sector so that we could build collaborations to promote innovations and entrepreneurship. But the role of the alumni was also emphasized, that they should never be left out in the partnership development. And in whatever partnerships that will be developed, we should look at it churning out products through research and development that can be commercialized to get sustainable income for the universities. Finally, but not the least, was an issue that came up, which is called communiversity. This is reawakening the internal diaspora, or imbibing the concept of communiversity, which comprises of those who would have contributed to the development of higher education, but are neglected because of their ethnicity, religion, political leanings, or other factors. But the universities need to rope all of these in to make sure that they run effective systems, because they may also be brains who can contribute to the development of universities in Africa. So these were the key issues that came out of Parallel Session 1 on day 1. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Mr. Bekoe, for those comprehensive notes from that session. I did chair the session and I approve that message, as you said over here. They're quite accurate. And in that capacity as the chair of that session, if I may mention, one of the things that we came out of it, given the variety of issues involved on our higher education system, management and leadership, was Mr. Pai's recommendation that we have a specific targeted event looking at our higher education management, leadership, and architecture on the continent. So that I did indicate that I will follow that through. Now, if I may go to the next session, please somebody advise me from the AAU how we pursue this. I'm not sure we need any remarks after the rapporteur's notes. I'm not sure we need the chair of the sessions to make any comment at all, even though I have the opportunity here, but
No, at this time, if we could stick with just the rapporteurs due to time constraints, and
Very
if we
good.
could please ask the rapporteurs to keep their remarks concise.
Very good. Okay. So if our rapporteurs are here and they heard what our AAU's leadership is saying, please try to keep the rapporteurs' notes as brief and concise as possible, key points, so that we can make progress on time. The next session, the parallel session 2 for day 1, was positioning African academic and research institutions to manage global challenges. That was moderated by Professor Amani El Sharif from Al Azhar University in Egypt. And the rapporteur who will give us the notes here with Dr. Makuku from the AAU head office in Accra. Dr. Makuku.
Yes, thank you very much. How many minutes do I have?
As I don't have a precise time, I would say as brief as it can be.
Okay, thank you. Yes, I'm very grateful for this opportunity. And also from the parallel session where I was a rapporteur, we had Prof. Amani there. And we had people like Maha, Arabat, doing their presentations. Guy, Joken, forgive me for the names, please. Namkolo, Kovic, Nesta, Camden. Those were some of the people who were involved there, Yomi. Right, so what came up is one of the points which Ransford also talked about, revamping our education strategy. Yes, this came out several times. And what can be our education strategy? People looked at curricular review, people looked at the teaching methods, and people particularly looked at the decolonization of the mind, where we now need to say, with this education system, we are not also looking at only those people who are looking for employment, but who can also create employment. But all that would come from the curricular content as well as the pedagogy, how students are taught in order for them to be innovative, creative, and all those other skills that are needed to move on and have a graduate who can fit in industry. The issue of commitment and repositioning of the continent after the COVID-19 pandemic, whilst we are still in it also, is something that came out clearly. And we talked about other pandemics like the Ebola, the cholera, all these challenges. And the key issue was to research into the different dimensions of the issues that really affect and impact higher and tertiary education, mostly in the negative sense, so that we can find ways of making improvements that can bring the higher and tertiary education community forward. How are we going to reach out to our communities? It was a major question, but we realized that we have the SDGs. The SDGs were drawn from those communities. And if the SDGs were drawn from those communities, what we supposed to do as higher and tertiary institutions in order not to remain as ivory towers? We need to increase community engagement so as to address the SDGs. They can also be addressed through the content. And what we are doing in the degree programs that are offered so that they speak to the SDGs and they help to solve the SDGs through our students and our community engagement programs. There was a talk of organized system. Organized systems. It means there's something wrong with our from leadership, governance, going down to quality assurance systems. Are they robust? Are they robust monitoring and evaluation systems, reviews, which we can use to check and improve our practices and all that we are doing in higher and tertiary education? Because the key question, the World Bank right when they said Africa doesn't need higher and tertiary education. Problems and challenges. So the challenge here is that African higher education should prove to the rest of the world that it is still relevant and that it is not becoming obsolete. But how can we do it? Curricular reforms. Talking about it is different. Writing about it is different. What was found to be lacking is implement issues of hunger and poverty, as well as climate change, together with inequalities that are in existence in our continent, have also been raised there. And we are saying, so if we are aware of this, what should higher and tertiary education do in order to address? This is the reason why we are saying African higher education can only be relevant if they are speaking to or trying to have degree programs and curricula, which is linked to the SDGs. The SDGs which have been drawn from the communities in order now to address all these issues: climate change, poverty, hunger, gender disparities, socio-economic inequalities. Next, were also things like, can we turn to renewable energies in order to try and resolve some of these challenges? Can't we turn to smart ways of doing things? That was a big one. We also looked at partnerships of African universities, not only in Europe, but also with Latin America, Asia, the Caribbean, and South America. All these issues were raised. We had a presentation on agriculture to do with the agriculture sector and bring a lot of ideas related to agriculture, new ideas, new innovations into the curricula. And a lot of people had interest in this, but also agriculture technologies. And in general, technology transfer is something that was talked about. And people said, we cannot have people going to school overseas, and most do not bake. And it's one form of brain drain. And with technology transfer, then we are able also to have some of those programs that people go for into the developed world now being done here. And the issue of environments that are conducive was talked about many, many times. People wanted to say, why can't we have conducive environments being created by our governments? Our government contributing 1%, and it was realized that very little was being done in terms of government financial contribution to research. Corruption. It was cited as one of the cancers which have affected and tertiary education in Africa. And then the way that it has also spread within these institutions unabated, something that people were lamenting about and said we really needed. There are areas where still, even if people realized the governments were not doing much, continued to say, let's make sure we push those governments. Our embrace depends on governments. And it is important that the government is coerced by vice chancellors and university leaders to invest in ICTs at national level, to also make sure that they contribute that 1%, but one voice cannot be enough. Universities need to team up, but of all these which I've said, the AAU was continuously being referred to make sure that it coordinates and bring together the key stakeholders who can make African higher education live. And so AAU, a key role to play there, and make sure that African higher education is somebody who is coordinating them, an organization who is giving the pathway which can be followed, the pathway which can lead to good results, the pathway which can give direction, the pathway that can give the needed capacity building in order for these institutions to be productive, to be transformative, and to move on. I think in the interest, I need to stop here, but I don't know if I was going to be allowed also 1 or 2 minutes.
If I may, Prof. Makuku, you will have 2 minutes. Just give me a little more moment. Actually, you'll be having more than 2 minutes, if you will. Can you hear me?
Thank you so much.
Yes.
So people raise the issues of complex process that requires multidisciplinary skills, strategies, and logistics to make sure that we achieve. SDG 16 was referred to, but unfortunately it isn't a priority for most African countries, not least because of political ego and power hunger. So I think higher and tertiary education needs to work closely with the SDGs in order to achieve. Another consideration was that this issue of language, it came out many times that it prevents navigation within the continent and among countries. And that language divide should be dealt with. And I really acknowledge that, because here at AAU also, one of the reasons why I think Prof. Ile has been a person who has been quite helpful is because he helped us with French translation. That he was the Secretary General, he never considered. Anytime you talked about translation, he would not, you needed to book me, you needed, and all of us, there are times when we would overwhelm him, but he realized the power of language. As far as there to support us with French translation. And narrow Egypt and Aero, they support a lot now with translation, because we need to have a continent that is not divided by geographical location, that is not divided by language barriers. But we need to break all those barriers, and it came out strongly in our session. I think in the interest of time, I will stop here, include all those in the write-up. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Prof. Makuku. Thank you very much for those very extensive rapporteur's notes. If I may mention our rapporteurs, this is already 10 minutes to 9. We're 50 minutes into a 2-hour session, and we're just now finishing rapporteur number 3 out of 11. So we have 1 hour to go for 8 rapporteurs. If I may request to our fellow colleagues rapporteurs, make your remarks within 5 minutes. 5 times remaining 8 is about 40 minutes. With an error margin, we'll get to 45, 50 minutes, and we have time to cover all sections. Please bear with me on that. Try to keep your remarks within 5 minutes. We are confident that besides what you're telling us here, as rapporteur's notes, those will also be written in some format, slides as earlier, or some other written format that will be shared and used to integrate into a comprehensive conference report. So make them as brief and concise as you can, please. Thank you very much. The next rapporteur here for the parallel session number 3 for the first day. And that session was the rollout of the African Continental Free Trade Area, implications for academia, private sector, diaspora, and collaborations. What does the AFCTFA mean for academia, private sector, diaspora, that 3-way collaborations? It was moderated by Professor Margaret King of the Global Institute for Planning and Sustainable Studies. And the rapporteur was Mr. Frank Ajay. Mr. Frank, are you ready, please? And 5 minutes, if you will. And just to end here, my colleagues, I would have to take leave very briefly for other commitments that I had. I would plead and call on Professor Dr. Makuku, who was just speaking earlier, to please assist with continuing as moderator. Thank you very much, and have a good day wherever you are. Thank you. Mr. Ajay.
Yeah, thank you so much, Mr. Chairman. With your permission, I would want to share my slide. Let's see if you can see it.
You're a co-host, so please share your screen.
Okay, that's fine. Okay, in the interest of time, Mr. Chairman, I think the section which covered the rollout of the African Continental Free Trade Area, implications for academia, private sector, and diasporan collaborations, it took 2 days. So in the interest of time, with your permission, maybe I combine the 2 sections in one with this report.
That would be very useful. Please proceed that way. That would be very useful. Same topic.
Yeah, same topic. Okay, so let me do slideshow so you'll be able to see it well. Okay. Okay, so the section was on the rollout of the African Continental Free Trade Area, implications for academia, private sector, diaspora, and collaborations. And the panelists for the event, we had Dr. Amani Asfa, Professor Joshua Abor, we had Dr. Richard Edujenfi, Dr. Atef El Shabwari, and then we had David Salako, who is from AAU Trade Group. The first day was moderated by Professor Margaret King, and then the second day was also moderated by Dr. Jaroni Felix Rotich. For the speaker 1, that is Dr. Amani Asfa, the focus of his presentation was ways the academic diaspora and the private sector can claim the turnaround strategy of Africa. And to achieve that, he pointed out that currently the African Private Sector Summit seeks to create ways in which all conversations that have taken place on the continent can be strategized and put into a project. Some of the key highlights of the presentation was that with the need for us to focus on the implementation of policy-driven initiatives, also the need for collaboration between the African think tanks, vitalize the strategic goals of Africa, and then also develop leadership and efforts aimed at repositioning the entire continent to translate into doable actions. And then also the need for us to implement a project that responds to addressing challenges in order to present the Africa we want. The second speaker was Professor Joshua Abor from the University of Ghana. And his presentation also focused on the opportunities, challenges of the AFTA, and then the role of the actors. For the opportunities, he pointed out that if we're able to roll out the AFTA successfully, it would create business opportunities for more than 1.2 billion people. And it would also increase Africa's GDP to over $2.5 trillion. He enumerated some challenges that can, let's say, slow down the progress of the implementation. And that includes poor transportation infrastructure that we have in the continent, political unrest, corruption, sometimes border bureaucracies, and then also fear of revenue loss by some member states. He identified some roles of the private sector to help us achieve this. And some of them is that the private sector would have to create awareness. A lot within the private sector may not be aware of the benefits that comes with this AFTA, and the need for us to communicate these benefits so that we can bring in a lot of people to participate in the AFTA. He also pointed out that there's a need for us to foster partnerships within and then outside of our jurisdiction. And then we also must act as a direct advocate. I'm talking of the private sector. They would have to act as direct advocates for entrepreneurs. For the academia, there's a need for a collaborative research. Research and then knowledge creation is also very important. And the need for academia to showcase successful businesses on the continent. The role of the diaspora would also have to create awareness, and it would interest you to know that the diasporan population is about 350 million. So if awareness is created about AFTA and all of them get involved, it will push the process forward. They need to also communicate the benefit also to the diaspora. They need to share knowledge. As we know, the diaspora is a skill bank for the Africa. So there's a need to share some of these experiences to also help the AFTA. And then also the diaspora would have to also do a little to boost export and import. And that can be done by encouraging maybe consuming made in goods that are produced in Africa. And by so doing, we will be able to increase export. And then we should also be able to create, the diaspora should be able to create linkages for local markets. And just by even serving as agents of their local counterparts in the diaspora, this could also push the AFTA process. The third speaker was Dr. Richard Dujenfi, and he focused on the role of the academia, the diaspora, and then the private sector, just as Professor Agbo. So I may not spend so much time here. And he enumerated that there's the collaboration between the academia, diaspora, and then the private sector comes in two ways. We can have the collaboration between the diaspora and then the private sector and vice versa. And then also we can have the private sector themselves also collaborating amongst themselves, which becomes an intra-relationship. Some of the key highlights of his presentation was that There's a need for project-based collaborations. There's a need to also emphasize on the benefit of AFTA for the private sector, which was earlier on enumerated. One key thing here is that the need to create the awareness and the benefit of the AFTA to the informal sector, where we have a lot of people. And this could be done by especially putting these petty traders on the continent into clusters to support and also support them so that they can also take advantage of the benefits of the AFTA. The first speaker was Dr. Atef, and his presentation focused on using innovation as a tool for accelerated transformation of SMEs in Africa. And as we can see with the diagram, there are levels of entrepreneurs. And for instance, the very first one, which is a necessity entrepreneur, which is what a lot of people on the continent do. They just buy, maybe they see a product, they buy from one place and then just move it to another location and sell it. And as you can see, you buy for about $1, you sell for about $1.50 pesos in another market. And that is a necessity entrepreneurship. The second one, which is opportunity entrepreneur, buys maybe $1, moves it into, or let's say process it into juice. For instance, this is watermelon, process it into juice and then has a value of about $5. Although there's been some value addition, but that is not much. The third one also buy $1 and then process it into maybe some chewables and then brand it well. And as we can see, the value moves from maybe about $1 to $50. And that is the innovator level. And his point was that for Africa to be able to take advantage or full advantage of the AFTA, we need to move away from the necessity and then the opportunity entrepreneur to the innovator so that we'll be able to take the full advantage that AFTA will present to us. Day two, we had just one presenter, and that was David Salako. And the focus of his session was analyzing how collaborations amongst the academic, the private sectors, and the diaspora would help achieve the objective of the Continental Free Trade Area with special focus on agriculture. And these are some of the key highlights he came out with. The need to develop and implement an e-empowerment program that would enhance intra and inter-African trade. They need to involve private sector partners, academia, and the diaspora to develop projects that leverage the power of technology for the benefit of the African entrepreneurs. And then you need also to promote an African e-commerce platform. And also they need to intensify digital transformation. Finally, he came out with some other highlights. They need to support SMEs through training to meet the fast emerging digital and international community. And they need to instill entrepreneurial drive in students, the youth, as a means of revolutionizing the continent in terms of trade and business. And then they need to strengthen university industry linkages. They need to develop innovative ways of preserving food to prolong its shelf life. And then they need to place value on agriculture in our universities and in our communities. So in conclusion, it came out that effective collaboration among academia, the private sector, and the diaspora society will be critical for the successful rollout of the AFTA and also increase intra-Africa trade, which is necessary for deepening regional integration in Africa. Thank you so much, Mr. Chairman, for the time.
Yes, thank you so much, Sir Frank Ajay, for such an elaborate presentation and summary. Prof. Kenkumpa is left, and I know there are other rapporteurs, for example, Mrs. Felicia Kwagweji. If you are on board, please come on board and Can I please have the other names of the rapporteurs so that I know who is remaining? Thank you so much. Mrs. Kwagweji.
Thank you very much, Dr. Violet Makuku. I would appreciate it if you can confirm seeing my screen. I've started sharing. Please confirm if you can see. Okay, let me
I can see it.
Okay, thank you so much. Let me quickly try and put it on slideshow. Okay, so I was the rapporteur for Parallel Session 4 on day 1, and the discussion on Parallel Session 4 was on arts, culture, and our heritage, levels for building the Africa we want. And this same topic was also discussed on day 2, and the rapporteur for the session was Miss Millicent Che. So what we have done, we have combined our presentation, and just like Mr. Frank did, I think we will do the same thing, and then we'll present for the 2 sessions together over here. So I'll be doing that. Sorry, I seem to be having a challenge. Okay, so basically there were some themes which kept coming up on both days, and there was a theme of, or the word called Sankofa, and then another one called Ubuntu. And Sankofa is actually a word which emanates from West Africa, in Ghana here specifically, from the Akans. And Sankofa, as we know, it just means go back and get it. And mainly it highlights the fact that we need to use our heritage to inform how we move forward. Another word which also relates to Ubuntu, mainly the fact that I am because we are, and this was mainly trying to promote unity. The fact that we know we are one people and we need to work together to be able to move to where we want to get to eventually. So let me just start by making the presentation on day 1. The moderator was Professor Lakeisha Harrison, and then the speakers, we had 2 key speakers, Prof. Marilyn Sofocle from the Howard University and Prof. Sheila Walker from the University of Texas. Mainly, I would be going through the key issues which were discussed. We highlighted the fact that we need to protect our arts, our artifacts, and our culture, and we need to do it in such a way that we engage the youth, so that the youth in our community are also involved in the process, and that we as Africans really owe it to ourselves to ensure the protection of our arts, our artifacts, and our culture. We also have to reclaim our heritage, and there was a discussion about the repatriation of our cultural art, how so many of these artifacts were shipped from Africa to other places, and the need that we really have to try and bring it back to our continent. And therefore, I think the museum that was introduced on the first day really comes in critical here, because if the point was that there was no place to keep it in good shape here, now we have all these facilities. And so we as Africans really have to put in a lot of effort and ensure that we fight and get all these cultural arts back to where they rightly belong, because these belong to us and we need to get them back to their homes where they really belong. There was also the discussion or a focus on the powerful role played by women in preserving our culture. There was a discussion that there used to be a lot of secret societies where women were really powerful, and these women were highly involved in preserving our culture, and the fact that women have been key custodians of our arts, our culture, and our heritage. And there were quite a number of powerful queens who played important roles. In fact, in some communities, some of the queens were even more powerful than the kings. And so we need to try and bring some of these structures that were in society, which really promoted, the holding on or the passing on of our culture from one generation to the other. We need to bring some of these powerful societies and things like very powerful queens who really supported the liberation movement. We need to bring all of these things back so that we can learn from them and ensure that our culture doesn't get lost along the line. Now, there was a discussion of what needs to change. I think all through the presentation, the issue of us changing our mindset stood out, and that Africans in the diaspora also really need to connect to each other simply as African descendants, rather than identifying as African Americans or African Caribbeans. Because once you do that, then instead of unifying us, we are actually dividing ourselves. So we should just identify as people of African descent and end it there, not really add on, because once you do that, then we are actually dividing ourselves. We also spoke about the need to revise
Alicia, we can no longer hear you.
Okay, can you, am I audible, please?
Yes,
Yeah, now you are
now.
audible, but there was a bit of a challenge earlier. Thank you.
Okay, I was talking about the fact that we need to have a mindset change, and that Africans in the diaspora need to simply connect as people of African descent, rather than identifying as African American or African Caribbean. Because once you do that, then instead of unifying us as one people, we are still, trying to portray the fact that there are divisions. So we need to simply stick to the fact that we are all one people, just like the Ubuntu concept that I mentioned earlier. We are all one people, all coming people with people from African descent. There was also the mention of the need to revise educational systems or the current state of affairs, where somehow we have been brainwashed to think that we cannot do anything on our own, and we always need to look for people from the West or other sectors to really say that what we are doing is right or not or wrong. We really need to take charge and revise our educational system. If there are curriculums which are not working well, we need to ensure that our art, our culture, we being Africans, all of these things are actually incorporated into our educational system, because at a stance, those things are not really there. So we need to take a second look. And then another key theme which ran through the 2 days which we need to change, relates to us not telling our stories from our own perspective. I think this was mentioned by all the speakers, that it is critical that we as Africans mention or say our stories from our own perspective. For instance, there was a reference to a drum being ordinarily only referred to as an entertainment piece of tool. But as Africans, we know that a drum goes beyond that. It's our culture, it's about our spirituality. In fact, it played a very critical role in our liberation, because through the drums, they could communicate among themselves. And then people who were not part of that culture could not really identify. And so we need to tell our stories, because whoever tells a story has an agenda, and through that they will be projecting it. So we need to take things into our hands and be telling our stories and be writing about our experiences. There was also the point that we need to take advantage of technologies to broaden our horizon and to learn more about ourselves, because it's only when you know about ourselves, when we connect together through platforms like this, that we get to really know more about ourselves, and so we can actually also forge a way forward on how best we can collaborate and improve on our current situation. Now, what were some of the policy implications that were raised? I'll try to be fast. Mainly, we mentioned that policymakers and stakeholders need to start paying attention to interpretation and translations. And this was critical because some of the speakers made mention of how documentaries are made, how books are written, how stories are written. And then when someone has to interpret it or has to translate it, they distort the meaning completely. And when you take it and try to pass it on, you would actually be missing aspects of the culture, aspect of, so it's very critical that we get involved, and we also get more people from African descent to be involved in the process of really learning to be high-level interpreters and translators. Because if we change the meaning of a single word, there was an example where in the book there was no mention of slavery, but when the translated version came, it was spread all over. So we need to be involved in this process and have that high-level trained interpreters and translators, so that we don't miss critical aspects of our culture that is portrayed in those writings and in those documentaries. And then we also mentioned that we need to continue to hold dialogues and create platforms such as this current Diaspora Homecoming, which will bring Africans in the diaspora and those on the continent together, so that we can have a stronger, relation, a stronger ability to connect to each other and discuss our own issues and come up with a way forward. We also mentioned that African universities need to run programs on African diaspora. I think it was mentioned that this doesn't exist in a lot of universities on the continent, and so we need to encourage that the universities run such specialized courses and such specialized programs, so that our culture, our heritage, and the things that we are trying to protect doesn't get lost in years to come. There were some recommended resources that were shared. Some of them are documentaries and some of them are books. And we are told these are very impactful videos and impactful books that we would all have to, make time and try and read and try and also watch them, so that as part of framing our mindset and as part of really understanding our roots and things like that, these are very useful resources. So I think we would share them as we go on. Just before I move on to the day 2 session, there was an issue that was also raised in line with all of us being strong activists, and that all of us should really be physical and make our points known in terms of what goes into our art, what goes into our artifact, and that we shouldn't only end the discussion, in the classrooms and on platforms like this. For instance, there was a case given where the Germans had organized an event on Namibia. And at this event, they were going to hold a discussion on studying bones of some ancestors, from Namibia. And even though the Namibian embassy was just next to the German embassy, they were very close, we are told, just about 10 minutes away in that country. They were not invited. So one of the speakers who spoke mentioned that she was invited, and then she asked if the Namibian embassy had been invited. And then they said, I think she met the ambassador for Namibia and asked them whether they had been invited, and they said no. So she invited the Namibians to participate in that event. And that an event that was framed to be considered, as a session where we're going to discuss the bones of those ancestors, mainly as objects for research only, without really looking at the culture aspects, the emotional aspect, all the other, aspects that feed into it, were completely not, they had not thought about coming to discuss all of those. But with the presence of the Namibians, the discussion completely changed. And now they saw that there's value in those bones just beyond the research arts that they were initially seeing it for. So this was just to mention that we have to be present as much as possible to tell our stories and to change the narrative. If you are somewhere and you see a discussion going on in a way which is not actual, which is not factual, and which doesn't really reflect the reality in terms of our culture, we should be bold enough to really contribute to the discussion, and through that you can change mindset, because we are told that through that the discussion took a completely different turn, and then mindsets were changed, and they started putting some programs and other things, incorporating the aspect of culture and the aspect of heritage. Just to quickly go through the second session, and the rapporteur for this session is my colleague, Ms. Millicent Che, so I'll be presenting on her behalf. As I mentioned, it was also on the same topic, art, culture, and our heritage, levers for building the Africa we want. And the moderator was Eureka Huggins, who works with the African Diaspora Ancestral Commemoration Institute and also affiliated with the African Diaspora Development Institute. So we had a powerful set of speakers. We had Dr. Lisa Aubrey, we had Dr. Kevin Washington, we had Mr. Amadou, we also had Dr. Fulato Moyo, and then Prof. Ank Bai. I think we saw that on our panel, aside academia, we also had an industry person who also brought in some interesting perspective. So the key issues from that discussion also related to the need for us to change our mindset that we need West and approval from the Western world. I think I had mentioned this earlier. And they also raised some 3 other important issues that we need to consider, that it is important for us to learn to beat our own drums. It's also in line with us telling our own story. There was also the issue for us as Africans that religion is a part of our culture, and we really need to infuse it even in our African education and system and as part of our development. I think as globalization and as modernization is taking place, we seem to be missing some of these things. So our attention is being drawn to the fact that we should know that as Africans, religions is really a part of us, and we need to incorporate it into our educational structures as much as possible. The third point also relates to us embracing storytelling as a tool which would help us, preserve our culture, our heritage, and pass it on. There was also the discussion of roots and heritage tourism. That was by a speaker who came from the industry. He works with an organization that have been working with, he's from Sierra Leone, and they've been working to really engage Sierra Leoneans who are in the diaspora and to encourage them to come to, back to their roots, to contribute. There was the issue of quite a number of Africans in the diaspora now really doing a lot of DNA checks and tests just to know where they are coming. So coming from, where exactly they are coming from in Africa. So these things were being promoted, were being encouraged, that we need to even collaborate with academia. The industry or the academia has to collaborate with industry to undertake such research on our heritage and, come up with various unique ways of promoting exchanges, because there's a whole lot of young children, a whole bulge that is coming up who have no clue, no linkages to their roots. So we need to encourage such exchanges as much as possible. And as was mentioned earlier, we are hoping that at some point, the COVID restrictions will enable for future events to really be held physically in African countries so that we promote those exchanges that were being talked about. The third point also relates to spirituality being an important part of our heritage, and the fact that we should try to hold on to it and not let it go completely, because it formed part of who we are and things like that. As a way forward, we spoke about the fact that we need to try and protect our identity. A number of Africans in the diaspora probably don't even have local names. Because as part of the process and over time and all of that, some are losing their local names and things like that. Our identities are being taken, and so we are told that we need to try and hold on to that, because once you mention your name, it should be possible for someone to even trace which country, which tribe, and things like that. But over time, we are losing some of those things. And so if we even do have kids, we are being encouraged to give them some local names, in one way or the other, as part of holding on to our culture, as part of identifying to our roots and where we are coming from. We are also told that culture is essential to humanity, and we should, protect it as much as possible and not lose sight of it. As part of the way forward, there were some contributions from participants as well. And one of them which stood out was that PhDs which are being undertaken in local communities should, as much as possible, we should encourage them to undertake, the final outputs, the final research that they produce should actually be undertaken, be presented in those local languages, at least so that the study population, those that you use for the study, should also be able to access it, you should be able to read it, you should be able to inform them. But if you go, you study this population and you present it in a language that they cannot identify with, or it doesn't help improve them in any way. So we're being encouraged that if it is possible, even if it's done in a different language, it should be made available through translation or so that the locals that you studied should also be able to access it. And then in line with that, it was also mentioned that we should also make research in local communities a compulsory part for promotion to professorship, for example, because we are told that in some universities, you cannot be promoted to that position if you have not undertaken a research in your local community, or if you have not worked and made impact in the community where you come from, and it should be something related to the culture, related to the people. You should study them, so that we are not only promoting, foreign agendas, but we are also ensuring that our locals are also being protected. Then, in line with the language aspect that I spoke about, there was a contribution which said that even for us as AAU, as we run our events, if possible, we should consider having at least one local language, for example, as part of the interpretation. I think the person suggested Swahili to start with. So it's being encouraged that as part of holding on to our culture, our heritage, we shouldn't only adopt a foreign language completely, but we should make sure that we try as much as possible to ensure that we don't lose our own local language, our own local identity. There were other key issues that were raised related to holding on to our local food, for instance, because it's one unit that unifies us as well, holding on to our local artifacts, our clothes, and all those other things. So those were some key discussions that the two sessions discussed. So, Prof. Dr. Makuku, if I may, I think I can end the discussion here. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Felicia. A very rich presentation. This is yet another aspect which sometimes we can undermine, but it makes us who we are. And if we are the people who don't make it so important the way it should be, no one will do it for us. And one of the sad things that you said is some people are coming to do researches about us and writing about us when we are here. And then that distorts our history and culture and traditions. So I think there's a need for deliberate efforts from us to really write a lot and put it out there in order to fight the misinformation in particular. When we had the African Homecoming, Pan-African conference, I saw some people who were talking about before they came for the homecoming in 2019, they thought Africa was a dark continent, no electricity, no roads, because where they are coming from, that is what they are being told. But then when they came, they saw the realities. And some of them have since relocated to Africa to set up state-of-the-art medical centers, some engineers and so on. I met them in person. So ladies and gentlemen, in addition to all that Mrs. Kwagweji has presented, I think it is also important for us to think of ways of showcasing the African continent and individual countries through the social media, because that is one of the platforms which is worldwide. We have our Twitter, our Facebook, you know it all. And if we are now in the habit of throwing out, we just have the hashtag Africa, I think everyone in the world will now start seeing the true picture and the lies that have been told about Africa for a very long time. Some still believe it's a dark continent. And I believe those who have benefited and invested in Africa try also to prevent others from coming, and so paint it in that way and continue to make it something which is not good. People don't know Africa is a continent. There are some people like that. They think Africa is a country. So that is quite sad. Ladies and gentlemen, I know Frank has presented, Felicia has presented. I'm told I've presented on behalf of Tori Saka and Ms. Bumi Odufala. Is there anybody else who still needs to top up as a rapporteur? Please, if so, just go ahead, because I don't have other names. I know Felicia teamed up with Millicent. Thank you. Hello?
So I believe that we've covered, excuse me, Dr. Makuku, I believe we've covered all of the parallel sessions. We do have a little bit of time if you'd like to take some questions, or if Dr. Lakeisha Harrison is on, she did the plenary session yesterday. She may want to comment on that.
Okay, is she on board, Athren?
I'm here.
She is.
Okay,
Yes,
please,
I
yes.
just-
How much time before she speaks? Let's know the amount of time so that we know we are on board.
Okay, so we have 30 minutes left in this whole session. We can certainly take some time if we want to. After Dr. Harrison speaks, we could take a few minutes and take some questions for the rapporteurs if people want to ask questions. So we've got about 30 minutes left. So Dr. Harrison can take her time, but then we can go to some questions, Dr. Makuku.
Thank you so much. I'm checking in that panel, but people can also just put up their hands and see what they want to say. Dr. Lakeisha, come on board, please. People can write questions in the chat panel while she's talking, and then I can follow up those questions from the chat. Thank you. Go ahead. Dr. Lakeisha, unmute yourself.
Ah, there we go. Thank you. The mute feature was locked.
Thank you.
So I couldn't unmute myself. But thank you for this opportunity to speak today. And our plenary session yesterday was indeed quite impactful. And we heard from Professor Asante, and we heard from Professor Osakwe, and they both have very impactful information for us. And I was pleased to hear Professor Molefi Asante mention the need for African diaspora studies to be incorporated within African university studies on the continent, because as was noted by the rapporteur this morning, that was one of the things that we talked about during the panel 4 that I moderated on Monday regarding art, culture, and heritage. And I genuinely appreciated the examples that he gave about the fact that we don't know each other. That the members of the African diaspora in the Americas, the Caribbean, Australia, Asia, etc., don't know our African brothers and sisters as well as we should from the continent, and vice versa. Our African brothers and sisters from the continent don't know us as well, and that is by design. So if we're going to be moving forward in revisioning the Africa we want, that includes the 6th region of the diaspora, then just as many HBCUs, and even some predominantly white universities, but many HBUs have an African Studies department or an Africana Studies department that combines and mixes the study of African and African diaspora histories and cultures, so that we, through HBCUs at a minimum, learn about the continent. We need the continent to learn about us. We need the continent to understand who we are. And through that process, that begins to bring us closer and eliminate some of the divisions. And often those divisions come from misunderstandings simply because we do not know. And when we can reduce the number of basic, simple misunderstandings between one another, then we can actually begin to get to know one another based on actual truth, fact, and most importantly, experience. So I appreciated those things that he made mention of yesterday. And then going further, Professor Osakwe talked about practical tools that can be used to accomplish that goal. And that is internationalizing programs and using digital tools and technologies to connect us across the world. And that it is important and imperative for people on the continent and people in the diaspora to begin to come into the 21st century when it comes to technology and making sure that we are connecting with one another. There's no longer any excuse about how far away the continent is, how far away Colombia is, how far away Canada is, in being able to go somewhere and study in order to learn. The pandemic has showed us the importance of being digitally connected and how the entire world has now opened up to everyone. Indeed, it is quite fortuitous that the first annual homecoming took place last year in the middle of a pandemic and was able to literally unite the academic African diaspora in ways that would not have been the same if it was held in person, because finances would have prevented so many people from being able to attend in person. And then those who couldn't attend in person would have had to wait for the reports, PowerPoints, or maybe videos to come out for them to watch, but they still wouldn't have been able to participate. Technology offers us an opportunity to break down those physical barriers that have limited our ability to engage with one another, and using technology in the university setting to learn from each other. And that is important because it provides, in this setting here with the Association of African Universities, it provides an opportunity for professors from all around the world, as was mentioned this morning through one of the rapporteurs, to be able to collaborate with one another, to co-teach classes from one continent to the next and bring their students together from one continent to the next. Those technologies is what Dr. Osakwe was talking about, and how that can begin to bridge the divides, break down these barriers, expand our knowledge base, expand opportunities for professors and academics alike, as well as for students. But there are challenges related to that, and one of those things is the infrastructure within many nations just isn't always there to support the technology needs in order to have that type of digital engagement with one another. So related to the AFCFTA, one of the things that is important as the continent begins to link more through trade and development and production is linking communication systems, linking electrical grids in ways that helps make it easier for technology transfer and technology communication and engagement across the African continent as a whole for many reasons, including business, but not the least of which is also academic engagement and exchange. So those are some of the points from our two speakers yesterday morning during the plenary session. So that's even though I wasn't the rapporteur for the session as the moderator, these are some of the points that I think were most impactful that came out of those two sessions.
Dr. Makuku, I'm being told that Bumi is the final rapporteur presenter.
Okay, thank you. So let me quickly take us through session 2 of day 2. Positioning African academic and research institutions to manage global challenges. It was a special session on agriculture, and it was led by Prof. Linley Carlton. We had 4 presenters, Prof. Margaret Matanda, Prof. Dr. Namokolo Kovic. So the first presenter, Prof. Margaret Matanda, spoke about the global change impacts on academic and research institutions, and she mentioned some key points that universities in high-income countries are revamping their operations, developing flexibility to deal with fast-changing environments. And also, she mentioned that they now have highly mobile talent pool of researchers and academicians. So she proposed that we should develop partnerships for capacity building programs among ourselves and with the developed countries rather. We need to strategize on how to publish, where to publish, and when to publish, and teaching collaborations as well. But apart from that, we should strategically position ourselves to be seen. So moving on to the second presenter, Dr. Diana Ngoyama. She talked about the greatest global challenge in terms of food and nutrition security. And these are caused by the effects of climate change and increasing world population. And then she asked how African universities can lead transformation in Africa's agricultural industry to ensure food and nutrition security. This is by promoting collaboration and partnerships to break silo mentality. We need to facilitate technology commercialization, develop entrepreneurship skills, and increase technology adoption. And also, as mentioned by the first presenter, she also emphasized that we need to do collaborative research with Africans in diaspora and also establish exchange programs to facilitate technology transfer. Quickly, the third presenter also spoke about the future of Africa, which is digital. We need to make sure that men and women have access to information. The third presenter was Dr. Caroline Wamala Lawson. So we need to have access to information in real time. We need to do more of this to build the competence of our farmers by tapping into diaspora collaboration. And she mentioned another key issue, that gender is critical and institutional bilateral relationships. She spoke about three main resources: land, capital, and information. That these three main resources compete well into agriculture being an economic asset to whatever communities relying on that, because the land is a set of socio-political, economic, cultural, and gender expression. And the practice of agriculture itself is highly gendered. So she concluded by informing the meeting that university bilateral partnerships are important to strengthen research capacity. Data is also a currency for agricultural growth, so we need to go into that for the transformation of Africa, but we must continue to address gender and social issues around land, capital, and information. The last presenter, Dr. Namokolo Kovic, talked about positioning the Association of African Universities members, including the diaspora, to address agricultural food systems challenges in Africa. And she spoke about the ongoing UN Food Systems Summit that is similar to the development of the SDG. So just like the EU member states coming together to do better in transforming their food systems, not just their climate change and the environment, but we should also come together to address long-term food security and nutrition for African countries. So she also made a call to action that we must consider our traditional and indigenous food as part of our toolkit for food systems transformation and potential entry points. Looking first at the UN Food Systems Summit and Agenda 2063 of the African Union, we must ensure access to safe and nutritious food, because most of our challenges are around low production diversity, low productivity, and also unhealthy dietary transition, where we continue to consume more fats and sugars, leading to health problems such as diabetes, high blood pressure, and others. We also need to shift to sustainable consumption patterns, because it was noted that we are adopting practices that are not necessarily conducive for the environment. And then we struggle, especially with the climate variability, food waste, especially post-harvest waste, which is a big challenge. So we need to safeguard future nutrition security from gas emissions and also advance equitable livelihoods, because a lot of our smallholder farmers and farm families can't actually afford the food they produce. So something needs to be done. And economic value, not just the parity and co. Those ones were just some key items that we should take note, but it is the overall economic value that we should look at. Then another person asked, Anthony Galen asked that how can marketing, branding, and advertising organizations provide support to the opportunities in agriculture? And the response to was that we should develop technologies to market and solve agricultural issues before we even start marketing. Then how is AAU, what is AAU doing to assist the agricultural universities to remain autonomous irrespective of government policies? That was a question by John Obodo. And the response from the AAU through Mr. Maxwell Hamoit, the director for NAMU North American office. He said that these questions and contributions from this event will inform the policy making and strategies that the AAU is developing to support the African higher education institutions. But apart from that, most of our member universities are already members of regional and international bodies in Africa. A body is, one of them is RU Forum. RU Forum enhances the capacity building and research of agriculture. So we have all those research centers, like the African Higher Education Centers of Excellence, that support institutions with funding and scholarships for students. Then we have some key recommendations. It was recommended that AAU should create an open science platform in Africa. We should continue to foster interdisciplinary or multidisciplinary engagements among the academics and others. We need to bridge the gap between the academics and the practitioner camps by bringing academics, policymakers, and farmers together to sit down and talk to each other. And we also need to continue to adopt the technology to enable farmers have access to information. Not just farmers, but everyone to have information to our research. So that's where we ended the session. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much, Mrs. Odufala, for such a rich presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we have pertinent questions which are being asked in the chat panel, and I strongly feel that it's not just for us to end without at least making an effort to address some of them. I'm starting from where I can see going upwards, or because if I start scrolling, I may continue to scroll up whilst we are losing time. Stanley Sakala from Zambia is saying, does AAU or any other offers a scholarship to some African students? As for AAU, I can respond that we used to have what we call small grants for theses and dissertations, but now we no longer have, but we have submitted our proposals in order to get such funding to support those students, masters and PhD, who are now writing their research or doing their research projects. Amaba, any machinery for follow-up to reintegrate the data for collaboration with the African scholars? Yes, with our North American office and the AAU headquarters, anything is possible, but I'll also give over to Maxwell or Athrine to respond to this question also before I move on. Athrine?
I'm sorry, Dr. Mukuku, could you please repeat the question?
After this meeting, what next? Any machinery for follow-up to reintegrate the diasporan scholars and researchers for collaboration with African higher education?
Thank you. So that is the main focus of the North America office, is to bring people together. We have a group of collaborators that work together to do things like this conference, as well as to look at ways that we can help scholars from the US to go to Africa and scholars from Africa to go to the US. It's something that we're continuously working on and will likely work on with the Carnegie Corporation, because they're an expert at it. They've been doing it for a long time. So we don't want to reinvent the wheel. It's something that we really want to work with them on doing. And for those of you who attended their session yesterday, focused on how to make those collaborations work effectively. We want to be able, at the North America office, to be able to learn from them and to utilize some of the techniques that they have been using to make those exchanges happen. So what I would suggest is continue to look at our website.
Thank you so much. Can you please write the website address in the chat panel, Athrine? Thank you for that feedback. I have another question. What can be done to transform African public universities to entrepreneurial universities for sustainability, especially due to the fact that government funding is declining? Short and precise. We need also to make sure that we introduce the Education 5.0, where we are talking about finishing the research chain. You start with your problem, go on to have your results, your publications, but move on to say, what can we come up with, which is something that can be sold, something that can be patented, something that can bring some enterprise. I can give a very quick example that there's one university in Zimbabwe, the Bindra University of Science Education. The institution partnered with lecturers and students, and they came up with a snake venom treatment. And when they did that, they patented it and started mass production. It is an income generating endeavor. And in general, let's think of income generating projects, and also to respond and to look for grants that we can apply for and win grants which can enable us to build our ICT systems, to also do a lot of things within our institutions. Yeah, but the begging bowl is not a good idea. It leads to constant exploitation. So what can we do on our own? There are many things that we can do. Let me move on. Any specific initiatives to promote gender equality and women empowerment in Africa? Yes, I think during the general conference, the AAU launched the Women in African Higher Education a network, Women in Higher Education Network. It was launched during the general conference that we had this year. And there are so many empowerment projects going on, either at institutional level or at national level. I call upon anybody who can say something in addition to what I've said regarding gender equality and women empowerment in Africa. Yes, Hussein, unmute yourself.
Hello?
Yes, are you addressing this question of gender equality and women empowerment?
Yesterday or today I'm not. Hello. Yeah. Hello? Is it not listening? Hello? Probably.
We can hear you.
I'm also so how we can in terms of Africa, in terms of gender. So how we can make in our university locally. That's
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it, and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic, it's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform and shares a lot of information to a broader audience. So we wish you all the best, and please continue serving
AAU TV,
the voice of higher education in Africa.
It's not just women carrying out the research, but it's also men and women together working. And the project that we worked on was to investigate why women are not as many as men in the ICT sector in Mauritius. That's a long project, of course, but just to share an example of what we are doing here in Mauritius. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Yes, it's another dimension. Margaret Matanda, is that to do with women empowerment and equality? Quickly, please unmute yourself and say something. Go ahead.
Mute. Okay. What's happening in Australia in some universities is that when they look at promoting of women, they take off the time when you're raising kids or when you're caring activities. So you're assessed not on all your career, but they sort of, instead of having lectured for 10 years, they say you've lectured for probably factor in that time when they promote you. And this way, they make sure that women probably get the same, gain some advantages. So if you are going probably for a deanship, and they say you should have a 20 years experience, they can consider a woman with 15 years experience, given that the 5 years were childbearing or they were bringing up kids and they have a case to prove it. So these are some of the things you can put into perspective within the African universities to consider those things women have to do, which are different from men. And this is also probably taken for men who have caring duties as well.
Thank you so much. Very short and precise. How many African universities? We are running short of time, I'm aware. How many African universities are members of AAU? More than 400 universities in different countries and also in different geographical locations of Africa. Yes, I'll give my details in the chat panel, and also Edith Larry, who is responsible for membership. You can contact anybody in AAU more about membership, or you can also visit our website at www.org. How can we improve mentoring of young faculty in higher education institutions? Do we still have time, Athrin, or we need to stop here or wind off? This one, to take up leadership roles in future.
You can take a few more minutes, Dr. Makuku.
Thank you so much, because some of the questions, when you read them, they really need to be addressed when everybody is still on board. How can we improve mentoring for young faculty in higher education institutions in Africa to think what would be some of these which I can answer? I just come in straight away. Gatekeeping by the professors and the old lecturers who have been in the institution for long. They seem to want to remain. A number of institutions I visited, they see the age divide, the age gap as a challenge, but I've always told part of actually an advantage, because they are coming up with knowledge skills, particularly in ICTs. And we are also trying to help them on how the university system operates. And so I think a symbiotic relationship exists. Workshops can be held with outsiders or organized in, and all those role models also need to be availed to these young ones so that they become leaders. But them not taking leadership roles is not because they don't want or they are not able, but the older ones are not allowing them to. Just like when you look in the political arena, in African countries, those leaders, you see leaders of 80 years, 70 years, and they are continuously renewing their term of office. So when will they accommodate the younger ones? So that is a problem, general problem in the continent. I think there's someone who says, Atran, why did you give an example of China? Frank Ajay, I hope you are on board. Why are you giving an example of China when China is colonizing the rest of the continent? I think that did not go down well with this participant, and I don't know if there are any responses to that. But I think it was just an example they took without really considering the impact that it would have. somebody says we should organize a workshop for 1 full week about these themes in Mozambique, hosted by local universities in partnership with AAU. Yes, we have been saying that, Monica, that even language cannot be a barrier. And so let's see how I gave you my contact details. We can organize that. Margaret Matanda, very quickly, what do you have to say? I think you are the last speaker before I hand over to Athren.
I think China was brought in as an example of a country which probably 20 years ago was not recognized. Their institutions, their universities were not well recognized, and they made a strategy to make themselves be recognized. So we are talking about adapting those strategies to Africa. The Arab Emirates are also doing the same strategy, where they are using their diasporas as a tool to enhance capacity within their own institutions. So 20 years ago, China was probably where we were. The universities were not known, but now they are ranked among the top 50 in the world. So we are saying we can adapt what they did. We can adapt what China, India, the Arab Emirates did. We're not saying we should borrow their things. So if they used a strategy which worked well, and it did, it succeeded. They went to America, to Australia, and took their top scholars and made them spend time in China. And they published with the scholars in China in the top marketing journals. And that way, that's how you get your university recognized. So that's why, and they trained PhD students and enriched the staff. So we are not saying let's borrow China. We are saying let's look at their strategy and use those strategies which India has used, the Arab Emirates is using, and China used very well and succeeded.
Yes, thank you very much for just making it more elaborate that it's not really about China, but it's really about showing a strategy that works. I thank you for that. In the interest of time to ask Athren to come back on board while I step down. Thank you for the grant opportunity to chair this session, and it has been quite interesting with lots of people who are so enthusiastic to make further contributions. I thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makuku. And thank you all of you for participating in this 3-day conference, or if today was the first time that you had an opportunity to participate. We appreciate your attending because so much of the messages that came out of this conference was about the importance of our connections. And we want to ensure that we continue to provide opportunities for us to connect across the diaspora. At this time, this is really our closing session. And we are going to open up the opportunity for people to be able to share thoughts that they have about the conference, or to make suggestions, or simply to say goodbye or to comment on what they've taken away from this conference. So we are gonna, if you want to make a comment, if you would raise your hand, and we will have our tech support people unmute you. I see that we already have a hand raised. Margaret Matamba, you've had your hand raised for a while. And so I am going to unmute you, and great. Margaret, did you have a comment? It looks like she has remuted herself.
My comment was on the Chinese universities, so not now. Thank you.
Okay, thank you. All right, does anyone else have a closing comment or suggestion about what you have taken from this? Okay, Lata Moyo, she was one of our speakers at this week's conference. You should be able to unmute.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I mean, it has been important 3 days, and there's a lot that I've taken from it. But I think my challenge to the AAU is really, if you could do a mapping exercise of the universities in Africa that actually have good strategies in making their education African. And I say this knowing that actually we have many good examples in the US and in other parts of the where diaspora are. But I am a product of University of KwaZulu-Natal in South Africa, and I know that they had very good, very clear strategies on making sure that the communities were embraced in the education processes, and that promotion of faculty could not be done unless if you had ample evidence that you were working with communities, local communities. And I think this mapping would also be very helpful so that there is data that is available, so that I reacted to China myself. I'm revealing, because for me, giving the example of China was like, oh, these are new colonizers. And we have examples within Africa that we can learn from, but most of the times, because we only limit our access to what we can find online, and then we don't get that access to those initiatives that are equally very good, that probably need us to go there to get the information, because probably it has not been shared widely online. So I'm just challenging AAU to really make this mapping exercise as an important process, if it has not yet been done. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Thank you for that. Dr. Makuku.
Thank you very much.
And I'm just going to say, if people could take just 1 minute for their comments, please. Thank you. Dr. Makuku.
Yes, thank you so much. Mine is very, very simple. You know, we have had many conferences and workshops and so on. But what makes a difference in the institutions, even when we have AAU workshops, is that during some time you find an institution writing to you that, Doc, after that workshop, we have done this, and that. It's the same with these events. A lot of things that we are talking about can be done. What Fulata Moyo has raised is very, very key. Universities do not consider community engagement an important aspect to consider for promotion. But I think from my rapporteur presentation, and also from her submission and many others regarding how we can achieve the SDGs, it can only be working with the communities where the SDGs were derived from. And we also need to make sure we go and teach and reach with this, because it's important then that even our promotion criteria, I hope there are vice chancellors here, it should be improved, it should be reviewed, so that the weight for community engagement is increased. And sometimes it's given 5%. If it is 20%, that's a lot, but it can go up to even 30% or so. And then I wanted to say the last word is, when we have done this conference, there are a lot of practical things which you can do to improve without money. And so you should go and do them. And then you need monitoring and evaluation. You need reviews, because last year we did a similar conference. What did you do about what you learned here? And this year we are on another one with the African Continental Free Trade Area. Higher and tertiary education stand a great opportunity to participate and gain a lot from the African Continental Free Trade Area. Somebody asked about fundraising and entrepreneurship. Join the African Free Trade Area. Partner with the rural communities to package products and take them there. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Dr. Makuku. I think those are really wonderful suggestions. And I think her point is well taken, that very often we think, well, we've heard all of these great suggestions, what do we do? And I think it's really important that we look at it from the individual, the institutional, and from the community or country level, that we start to look at what can we do as individuals, what can we do in our institutions, and then what can we do in our communities and in our countries. And so she's made some suggestions. I implore you to really think about that and to leave this conference, because we keep getting the question, well, what's the next step? What do we do? I'd like to hear you tell us what is your next step and what are you going to do to really look at what can you do individually and at your organizational level, because all change happens because one person or multiple people come together and decide to create that change. So I implore you to start to look within about the changes that you can make within your sphere of influence. So I am going to go to Margaret King. Margaret, you should get a message to unmute.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. Hello, everybody. I just want to thank AAU in general, and of course, North America, my brother Maxwell. We work well together, and the rest of the team to organize this conference. It was powerful last year. It's even more powerful this year. And we truly appreciate it. Again, what everybody has said, we have we've had these conferences and we've done research and studies and all that. The most important thing is to move beyond the principles and get into the practice of it, to implement. From some of the things we've talked about, the Global Institute, I started in my university at Chicago State University here in Chicago, Illinois, of course, USA. And it grew beyond the university in terms of the need for the diaspora Africans here to connect powerfully, not just in talk, but in specific actions. So we like to invite you, if you need actions after this, join the Global Institute. We already put the WhatsApp chat platform, and you can join us. Let's talk about the specific things and put things together, like in collaborative grants, in research, in cross-cultural understanding. We do have a program, Global Youth and Student Association, that focuses on entrepreneurship. While in the university, students can take the skills that they are already learning and create something to make money. It's a win-win for the university and it's a win-win for the students. We have that's one of the things we were going to put together on. It didn't quite work out with the technology, a team putting that together. But our idea is to create these incubators where students actually use their skills. The university benefit because they are making money. And we had that engagement with the community. So it is time for us to move beyond top. We've had some great presentations and they're wonderful, but we need to get into the implementation. And that's what the Global Institute is all about. Collaborating with AAU and working with the different universities and our professional groups to make sure there is a proactive approach to sustainable development in Africa, and of course, the advancement of our education, which curriculum needs to change, focusing on actually doing, not teaching our students how to do it, but they are actually doing in these incubator hubs and making money for the universities and also making money for the students. Thank you so much.
You are muted, Athran, you are muted.
Oh, okay, my apologies. I was saying thank you so much, Dr. King. Next, we are going to go to Dr. Lindley Carltoon. you should receive my message to unmute yourself.
And it is not yet. Now it is unmuted. Yes. Yeah. Thank you very much, everyone. And I just want to say congratulations to the AAU for putting up such a fantastic 3 days of wonderful conversations throughout the many sessions that we had. Unfortunately, one could only be in one at a time. So it was really wonderful to listen to all the rapporteurs making the presentations. Thank you very much to all of you for this fantastic work. So my comments and reflections are basically around the issues of what next. I think for some of our presenters and also some of the questions that have come my way, I was moderating, I had the privilege of moderating session 2 yesterday afternoon with a fantastic panel of 4 very well qualified, renowned presenters. And some things that came up really are the following. One, is it possible that we will be having, for example, position papers or policy papers as a result of these conversations, these presentations, discussions that we have had? Secondly, would it not be a nice thing and a professionally rewarding thing if we could have published papers as a result of this conference, if the presentations that have been made by the speakers or others that would have been solicited, we could have had, for example, a special issues journal. And in that special issues journal, then of course we would be able to have our very own being the editors of that journal, but we would also be able to practice being peer reviewers. And all this would be able to give us some kinds of professional brownie points, whereby we could see ourselves coming up as either, being part of committees, but also having these on our recommendations or our CVs. And when we're looking for promotion, especially for junior staff, this would really add to their development. We could have also maybe thought about having a book which could have been edited, and we could have had some edited chapters or contributions to those chapters. And I think, again, these would really add to professionalizing and making sure that people get some qualifications or continuing education accreditation as a result of attending a conference such as this one. The second point is that related to the diaspora. I think it has come up a couple of times that, the colleagues on the continent, but also those in the diaspora are asking, how can we work together? And I do believe that one of the many criticisms which we have been reflecting upon here today and also the past 2 days is how we make room for the next generations, where we look less to dividing and conquering, but really looking at cooperation and complementarities. I really do think that while our colleagues on the African continent think that sometimes it is very difficult, and we did have this come up in our session a couple of times, that solicitations for partnerships, collaborations, working together are sought after from the diaspora, but people don't get responses. We also had another reflection that shows that the reverse is also equally true. So I think we need to learn how to work together instead of thinking of ourselves as competitors or dividing and conquering, which is something that I think has been very detrimental to the progress and the progression of our academia, whether it's we as Africans in the diaspora, but also being on the continent itself. And then I think we can think and reflect a little bit how we as the African diaspora, but also as the African academicians on the continent could maybe identify strategic areas where we could work together. We learned yesterday that the African Union has 6 flagship universities, and I'm not familiar with those 6 flagship universities. I don't know how many in the diaspora even know about what these 6 flagship universities represent. Is it in all areas, or is it in certain strategic areas? And then finally, one of the things that came up and that I'm also asking is, we have identified 4 track themes this year. Will these be recurring themes? Will next year be new themes? Are we going to start from the beginning all over again? Wouldn't it be nice to see where we are now when we meet again next year? Otherwise, I do fear that we'll just be restarting and reinventing the wheel all over again. Thank you very much.
Thank you so much. That issues us a challenge as to what we will do next year. So thank you. I do have Benson Kasu from Addie. You should be receiving a message from me to unmute.
Yes, I'm here. Thank you very much. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, everybody, wherever you are. Thank you so much. I've been listening to the deliberations, and I apologize for not participating yesterday in an emergency. However, I wanted to step in and just let you know about the upcoming trade expo in Ghana that we're taking up under on the heads of ADDI, African Diaspora Development Institute. As you all know, we're taking a large diasporan group to Cape Coast to start building, constructing the Africa that we want. We are taking a lot of us, and we want to invite you to come and join us in Cape Coast. I don't think I have a lot of time to go over anything of major discussion, but I just want to make that invitation. You can see most of the information at our ADDI.org. There's more information there, and I will let Dr. Maxwell share with you all the information that we have so far produced.
You are muted, Athran.
Thank you. I'll just need to stop unmuting, muting myself. Benson, would you please go ahead and add that that URL, that website in the chat, please?
Yes, I have already added. I've already done so, but I will do it again. And,
yes.
Welcome. If you are in the USA, we have a nice package for you that includes your flight, your accommodation, ground transportation when you get to Accra, all the way to Cape Coast and back. And if you are in the African continent, we'll have a different package. So if you're in Europe, we have a package as well. But if you get to Accra, we can manage the ground transportation and hotel accommodation. So I would like to take all of you there. We are projecting about 500 diasporans going to Accra with us, and that's Cape Coast.
Wonderful. Thank you so much.
Which dates again? That's important, Athran. I think he needs to put the information here, the dates and what have you.
The dates are December 2nd to December 13th. I'll put that information here, and I'll put another URL that takes you to the registration package page that has all the information. I will post that here.
Okay. Thank you.
You see Tendai?
Yes, I do. That is who I am going to next. And so Tendai Paula Johnson, I will ask to unmute. You should get the message to unmute.
Yes.
There you are.
Good morning, everyone. I just want to build on what Sister Chiwona had indicated about follow through. I deal with, and my life has been devoted working with the HBCUs and also trying to connect us to the continent of Africa. And I have a suggestion for us, because in reality, the majority of the 101 historically Black colleges and universities, most of them are unaware of the AAU. So we have to do some things in terms of reaching out and reaching across to make them aware. So my suggestion, one of your sponsors of this particular conference is NAFIO, the National Association for the Advancement of, not advancement, but it's one of the advocacy agencies.
Equal Opportunity in Higher Education.
Equal Opportunity in Higher Education with Leslie Baskerville.
Yes.
That organization is one of the advocacy agencies for HBCUs. And since Leslie's already a partner with you all, if a campaign, a reach out campaign to inform the HBCUs, not only of your presence, but inviting them to participate for the joint growth of our people, regardless of where they are in the world. And just recognize, I just want people to recognize that the HBCUs face the same challenges here as our schools are facing in the continent in terms of funding and so on and so forth. But collectively, we can make a difference and we can improve our situation. Okay, thank you.
Absolutely, thank you. We definitely want to do greater outreach to the HBCUs in the United States, so thank you. Kojo Deku, I'm sending you a message to unmute. Okay, Kojo, you are unmuted.
Hello, do you hear me, please?
Yes, we can hear you now.
All right, great. So mine is just a comment. I've tried last year, my organization has tried since last year, trying to send some kind of partnership proposal, working with the AAU, on setting up a Pan-African online learning system, or like a market where all universities across the continent would have the opportunity to teach short courses and even sometimes even full academic courses, just like we have in the US, where we have the eds.org, for example, where you have universities like Harvard, MIT, and all kinds of universities joining. We have a platform where we would like to put together all African universities as well. This will bring a lot of not only the opportunity for anyone to follow courses at their own pace and maybe even at a much reduced cost, but also teach certain courses in local languages, as well as the level of making a lot of financial, good money for the various universities. But yeah, we find it difficult to get through. We hardly get any response back. We've sent letters to the head office in Accra, but we never got a feedback. We sent emails, never got a feedback. So the question is, now that we have this big platform, I would like to plead, to whom or where do we address such issues? And also that if such businesses come forward, that we have the opportunity to at least to meet people who are in charge and to pitch well and see how to take it up. Then lastly, universities across Africa, we need to realize that we are not competing with each other per se, but we are working together. So when you bring out a platform like this that brings together various universities, it should rather be seen as an opportunity to come together to do things, rather than see it as a competing marketplace, which makes people to rather shy away instead of embracing this wonderful idea. So that was a little bit my comment and opportunity. Thank you very much, and I'm so grateful to be part of this. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone from AAU in at the Secretariat who can direct Kojo as to who he should be communicating with? Anyone from the Secretariat?
Let him just send that document to me or to anybody, but he should copy a number of people. But if he sends it to me, I think I can make sure that I pass it on. Kojo, this is my number, +233 263 129798. Even if you send it on WhatsApp, that's my WhatsApp number, Dr. Violet Makuku. I think we'll be able to see what is in there and how it can be pushed forward.
Right. Thank you so much.
Okay.
Okay, next we're going to go to John Agbo. Agbo, are you receiving the message to unmute, John?
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now. Thank you.
I bring you warm greetings from Nigeria. I must first and foremost congratulate AAU on this achievement. It is a success already, and we thank God for that. I would like to bring up new 2 points, and the one relates to how can the Secretariat or the AAU as an organizer of this event leverage on what has been discussed so far to uplift younger lecturers like us. I am a lecturer 2 officer and seeking my promotion to lecturer 1, but most conferences or all the discussion has been centered highly on professor partnership, trying to train younger ones and then trying to come over for teaching. Such opportunities are not available for us now. So how can AAU probably make younger lecturers ambassadors in their own countries within their university system, and from time to time organize an opportunity for them to travel to better laboratories or universities to conduct at least 3 months to 6 month research. That way, it can also be grooming the younger ones to take over from the crop of older generation that we have right now. That's 1. 2, I know there is a saying in the, I think in Swahili region, the Eastern African region, Ubuntu, we are because you are, or something like that. How can those universities that are receiving better funding, better collaboration from developed countries like America, European universities, and even China that is coming up, help universities in other universities in Africa, their crowd to come and collaborate, to leverage on what benefit they are having now to bring up other people from other side of the Africa. For example, I know very well, I'm into remote sensing for forestry, and I know very well that we don't have collaboration with universities that can provide data and give us working opportunities within Nigeria from other countries. But for Eastern Africa, they have, and Southern Africa, they have a lot of satellite imagery that are available to them to utilize. They have good laboratories in remote sensing that can be utilized, that can be used by their researchers in growing. So when you have such, how do you bring some of us from Nigeria or from Gambia or any country that is within this AAU network to benefit from such? In that way, the Swahili proverb of "we are because you are" or "you are because I am" can be able to be utilized within this context. Lastly, is on my own personal request. I am in my doctorate study now, and I'm working on remote sensing for forestry, and I'm looking for a bench work. If you can direct me or guide me or give me an opportunity to improve upon how to complete my PhD research, I will be grateful. I'm doing it here in Nigeria at the University of Nigeria. Thank you very much.
Quick response. Please, Dr. Makuku, respond.
Yes, in terms of trying to have the young lecturers going for 3 months, 6 months, talking of financial implications. And as long as we do not have a grant to do that, we cannot support. We used to have a staff exchange, but we have also now done our proposals where we are looking for such funding to do these activities. AAU is an international non-profit organization, and we mostly rely on funding and also a bit of fundraising in order to make sure things happen. The issue which you have said that those institutions which get funding from, they work hard to get that funding. But when you are lucky, they may get a grant which they sleeplessly wrote a proposal for. Maybe your country is needed to be part of that, maybe research project or just a project which is multinational. That's when you will have an opportunity to come in. But MOUs can be established. For example, where you said these East African countries with good labs and GIS, what have you, your institution, it should be at institutional level that they write an MOU to say you are going to use our facilities, these ones. We also don't have these facilities, and you are also going to use them. And so that's how it works. But what I want to tell you is that for those institutions which you are seeing have got funding, they are working hard. They are searching for grants. They are writing proposals and having sleepless nights. And so your institution and you as an individual should follow the same. That can help a lot. I can't remember the third one which you talked about, but at least, yes.
Thank you, Dr. So next, I'm going to go to Professor Elizabetha Olarinde. You should be receiving my message to unmute your line. Professor Olarinde?
Where is she? She's here.
She's here. I'm sending her a message to unmute, but she is not unmuting.
Maybe she's busy.
Okay, I will
She's
move
the
on.
Vice Chancellor. Okay, thank you.
Okay, I am going to then go to Hassan Hussein. You should receive my message to unmute.
Okay. I am from Ethiopia and in Bulehora University. We would like to write a MOU with AAU. How can we write that? Our letter, how can we send to you our MOU for AAU?
For AAU, you don't need an MOU. Are you a member? You need to be a member of the AAU. Are you a member of the AAU?
Personally, I'm a member, but as an institution, we are not a member.
Okay, AAU does not have a personal membership.
Okay.
AAU has got institutional membership. So you would need to, can you see my details in the chat panel? In the chat panel, I've put my WhatsApp number and everything. So once you communicate with me, I'll give you the details on how to, the steps to take to apply to be a member. It's not automatic. Yes, but AAU membership is institutional. It's not individual.
Okay, okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Dr. Elizabetha Olarinde, are you available? All right, then when she is available, when she is available, I will come back to her. Are there any other questions, comments, final goodbye statements that anyone would like to make? Okay, I see Eshezu Ogu. Going to send you a message to unmute. Your line is open.
Thank you so very much. My name is Eshezu Ogu, an African in the diaspora. I attended these events last year, and I've attended most of it this year. I am encouraged, just by way of background. I used to be an educator. I'm an analytical chemist by training. In the last 3-4 decades, I have been in the business of discovering, developing and getting medicines to market. I've collaborated about the development and authorization of over 10 markets for the 10 medicines, for the worldwide market. So my comment is that I had commented in the chat, it's my feeling that our African universities are doing a great job, given that they don't have the resources. Having said that, I think we need to burn down the house in terms of curriculum and administration and rebuild for the 21st century. These are personal feelings. I'm sorry if I offend anyone. The matter of those of us who are older hanging on to power forever is one that we need to address. I don't have the answers. Returning to this particular event, it has been suggested by others. I would like to see us at next year's session, if there is one. I'd like to see in the plenaries 2 examples of projects that have been inspired by this series of AAU events from last year and this year. 2 examples of people telling us what projects they have implemented as a result of having been here. Implementation at the end of the day is more important than all the research papers in the world, which I know is important. Research and publication is important to the for academicians like you all. But at the end of the day, somebody was talking about how do we translate discoveries into real world products that benefit our peoples, right? So I'd like to see 2 concrete examples out of here. People said, I came to this place, they stimulated me, and look at what we've done at our institution. Finally, a personal note. I do collaborate with some Africans. I'm in my area of expertise. I'm actually looking for somebody to do African University to do a research project with me. I can do it here in the States, but if people are interested in collaborating, they can get in touch with me, and I've already put my contact information in the chat. I can put it again if you wish. Thank you so much, and I appreciate you letting me speak my mind.
Thank you. I would appreciate if you would put it in the chat again, because people might have to scroll to find it. So if you put it in the chat right now, folks will know that that is you. I definitely agree with you. I'm not an academic. I'm a practitioner. I work with community organizations to build and create change initiatives in their communities. And that's the thing that I think both Dr. Makuku and I have said today, and many others have said throughout this last few days, is change happens at the grassroots level. It's really important for everyone here who's interested in a particular kind of change, whether that is at your institution, that is in the communities that we serve, because hopefully the institutions are here to serve the greater community, that we begin to look at what is it that we can individually do, what is it that we can inspire to happen in our organizations, and how can we collaborate and work with community organizations to create the change we want to see. The research papers, I agree, are very important, because the research often tells us what's really critical, what works. The research often gives us that information, but once we then know what works, we have to implement it. And so look at the people who are here and figure out how you can collaborate with those people in order to be able to drive the kinds of change that you want to see. We all may work on different things, but we have to identify what that is and who are the other people working on it. This morning, we've heard people talk about workforce development and entrepreneurship and even changes around the pandemic, around exchange. What is it that you want to happen? What's the change you want to see, and where are you going to start? So I am now going to go to Dr. Joseph Silver, and then Anthony Rodriguez, and then I will go finally to Professor Ehili, the outgoing Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. Those will be our final three speakers. Joseph Silver is on the board of directors.
Prof. Elizabeth is back.
Okay, thank you. And so I will take then the last four speakers. That is the final four speakers that I will take. Dr. Silver, I'm sending you a message to unmute. Oops.
Thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you to each of the participants. I have had the opportunity to sit through 3 days of the conference, and there have been some excellent presentations. And one of the things that I would like to see is that we do engage in a sustainable follow-up. I would like to thank Maxwell and all of those who put this together. And I now have the opportunity to sit on the board. And so I've been kind of listening to everything that has been shared. And I would like to affirm that there is the necessity of a quality follow-up. I also want to make sure that there is a sustained linkages between universities and colleges in North America with the universities in Africa. There's just so much brain power between the two sectors. And I just think that if we can figure out a game plan for all of us to work together and to collaborate, a lot of our issues can be addressed. I heard different people talk about elevating China in this discussion. And I think that we should get help from anywhere that we can get legitimate help from. But I just want us to be cautious as we engage with China, because I'm seeing some things on the continent related to China that is not so good. And it's almost like a new colonizing agency, but we can overcome that too. So I'm looking forward to working with all of you. I'm looking forward to the North American branch being a significant player in the Association of African Universities. So thank you, Madam, for giving me that platform to share those few words.
Thank you very much, Dr. Silver. We are now going to go to Professor Olorinde. Would you actually raise your hand so it'll make me easier for me to find you and unmute you? Thank you. Okay, you should receive the notes. There you are.
Yeah. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. With a lot of gratitude to all members of the organizing committee. I say a big well done. Once again, AAU has come forward to demonstrate the intellectual competence, the high level of communicative knowledge, and the power of togetherness through bringing resource persons, participation and participants, not only from Africa, but from all over diaspora. I feel guilty that I was not able to participate and to listen to more than my busy schedule permitted me. It was a fantastic proactive development. Yes, we are living in a globalized world, but our identity as Africa will stand out through such workshops where we are more conscious of our power in our culture, that stands in our culture, in disseminating our our readiness to bring about that change, that African change. Africans' values are born in deep-rooted cultural values. Such cultural values could bring about the positive change that we are also looking for when we are talking about quality. Thank you very much for giving me this opportunity. I congratulate the organizers. I congratulate the participants, the resource persons, and most especially the Association of African Universities. This is really an Africa academic in diaspora. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Olorinde. I'm going to briefly go to Anthony Rodriguez. He was my partner in crime last year in session 4. So I'm going to go to him, and then we will hear from both our outgoing Secretary General and the President of the Association. Let me unmute you. Anthony, you should have a message on your screen to unmute yourself. Thank you.
Hello, this is Dr. Anthony Rodriguez greeting you from Texas Southern University in Houston, Texas. Thank you so very much for giving me the opportunity to say a quick hello. I have shared a link on the chat. It's to my global survey. It's called Where in the World Are You? And I am at the university campus right now, and people are knocking my door, so I don't have the time to really say what I would like to say, but I want to encourage everyone to realize our globe, our space is changing as we speak. And the things I've been hearing in this conference, the one from last year, and what the AAU is doing, we're in this perfect space we need to be as Black people right now. We need to, as African or Black and brown people, we need to continue the work we are doing. I like to encourage everyone, pay attention to what's about to happen October the 31st to November the 12th, which is COP26, I believe it is. A global change is happening, and Africa is at the epicenter of this change. You may have heard our President Biden in the USA, we are at a crucial moment in time. Yes, we are. And the world is dependent actually right now, once again, on the backs of Africa. Africa is necessary right now for the world we're in. The greatest business in all planet Earth right now would be to protect the environment. And we have the solution. We've always had solutions. So I'm encouraging all the universities, all the students, encouraging students to understand the world as it's built right now. It's beyond the 55 countries. It's the entire planet Earth is at stake right now. And we of the African diaspora and of Africa, we are needed again, because the solution, someone said to me this morning, the dreams of the world can come true because of Africa. Our friend is, and who's our friends and who are enemies is not the same. China is not the enemy of Africa, but we have to make a better deal when we make deals with them. We can't make bad deals. America is also a friend, but we also have to make better deals with them. Africa and the continents of the countries of Africa have to now focus on manufacturing, massive job creation, and having the same economic base. Our customer can be China. That's our customer. So we can sell to them. We just have to provide a better product, a better price. Forgive me for rushing to say much of this, but I hope to get the opportunity to meet with Maxwell Hoyt and his people so we can further discuss some of the things I really think that we, with the AAU, can really be a game changer. And once again, we can be the one that make the difference for all of this planet. Thank you for the opportunity, and forgive me for being so rushed and short, but I have to go and let this professor into my office now.
Thank you, Dr. Rodriguez. We appreciate your joining us. Okay, our final two speakers of the day will be Professor Etienne Ehile, who is the outgoing Secretary General of the Association of African Universities. Professor Ehile, if you would please unmute.
Thank you, Afrin. The chairperson, distinguished participants, ladies and gentlemen, I stand on existing protocols duly established by this conference to express my sincere gratitude to all and sundry for your active participation in this very successful second African Academic Diaspora Homecoming under the theme Managing African Academic Diasporan Relations in a Fast Evolving World. All too soon, the 3 days of our fruitful discussions on this theme and its interlinked sub-themes have come to an end. But this is by no means the end of an event or another year of talking. Rather, this is a reflective moment for the continuation of the initiatives taken by the African Union, the government of Ghana, the AAU, and like-minded organizations like the Pan-African Heritage World and the African Diaspora Development Institute to pool the expertise of our diaspora brothers and sisters towards our common agenda of developing the Africa we want. There is a Cameroonian proverb that says that a chattering bird builds no nest, and a Ugandan one that says that a roaring lion kills no game. At this summit, our great minds identified gaps and made useful recommendations to rectify them. The AAU and its partners are not resting on our oars, but will walk the talk by putting in place implementation strategies, activities, and timelines to report on at our next annual summit. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, permit me to express our gratitude to the President of Ghana, His Excellency Nana Addo Dankwa Akufo-Addo, for his keynote address, as well as to all other inspirational speakers, discussants, our development partners, and all those who worked behind the scene to make this conference another success, especially NAMO Organizing Committee. We are also grateful to the interpretation into Arabic, ably coordinated by the AAU North Africa Regional Office, NARO. To all others, we owe you tons of gratitude. I am duly informed that on Monday, 27th July, 418 participants logged in for the opening ceremony. This is very remarkable in view of the different time zone from which you were drawn from. Thank you all for contribution to position Africa, the fastest growing continent in the world, at a competitive position in global affairs. I am officially ending my tenure of office as the AAU Secretary General tomorrow, 30th September 2021. But this does not mean I have left the higher education scene. My humble plea is to urge you all to work harmoniously with my successor, Professor Olusola Oyewole, who is well experienced in higher education affairs and will continue to carve the path we have initiated. On this note, ladies and gentlemen, I would like to thank you once again for your kind attention.
Thank you so much, Professor Ehile. Our final speaker of the day, morning, evening, depending on where you are, will be the president of the Association of African Universities, Professor Said Osman Bakri. And he is here to join us. Professor Bakri, you should be receiving a message on your screen to unmute your phone.
Thank you very much, Ms. Chairperson. Good morning or good afternoon, everybody, depending on where you are. And the AAU Governing Board members, President, Secretary General, Prof. Etienne Ahili, with best wishes for the next stage of your life, distinguished speakers and moderators, distinguished academics present, staff of AAU Secretariat, staff of North Africa and East Africa regional offices, the North America office of the association, all participants present here on this platform, all protocols observed. It is with much joy that we witness another academic diaspora homecoming, a platform which provides a great opportunity for persons of African descent to deliberate on issues affecting our well-being, issues deliberated on are very current and serve as a clarion call for Africans to wake up and take our destiny into our own hands. As we move back to our various institutions, please let us carry back the learning acquired to help reform our higher education systems. These lessons should inform our strategies, which inform the programs we manage, students recruitment, research, agenda setting, and the stakeholders we engage, among others. There have been a lot of talk about the need for giving more attention to implementation and always working out on action plans and programs, and that need remains all the time. As we move back to our various institutions, please, we need to remember that. To the private sector and policy makers, please remember that academia has a big role to play in the rollout of the African Continent Free Trade Agreement. The skills of the academic diaspora should be leveraged to offer vital capacity building and training around policy issues for the African Continental Free Trade Agreement. The Africa we want emphasizes an integrated, prosperous, and peaceful Africa driven by its own citizens and representing a dynamic force in the global arena. Reference to Africa includes the 6th region and the themes and others, cooperation among all persons of African descent because of our common heritage. Aspiration 5 of Agenda 2063 envisions an Africa with a strong cultural identity, common heritage, shared values and ethics. This calls for an African cultural renaissance which is preeminent and that inculcates the spirit of Pan-Africanism. We need to promote political, economic, and social cooperation among all persons of African descent. I would like to finish by thanking everybody here for really taking time off to participate in this very interesting and exciting meeting. A lot of thanks go to the organizers. I thank Prof. Ahili on a well done job in his last mission for the AAU. And I thank Mr. Maxwell, who has been the dynamo actually behind most of these activities. On this note, I formally declare the 2021 version of the African Academic Diaspora Homecoming as having come to an end. Thank you. Merci. Shukran. Obrigado.
As Professor Bakri has said, we are closed. Thank you for coming.
Record.
Hey, so this is Dishant from Unica University Common Application. I recommend you to watch AAU television.
AAU TV is the place to be for every person in higher education in Africa. Better be there or be nowhere.
Continuez de regarder la télé et surtout sur le AAU.
Keep watching it and it will change the way you interact with higher education on the continent. AAU, great job.
I want to tell you that AAU television is fantastic. It's educative, it's informative, and it is a must for anybody who is interested in higher education in Africa.
When I was in Accra last year, I did an interview on this TV. It's a very important mouthpiece.
It's a data, it's a bank of all we need for the development of higher education in Africa.
People should make an effort to view it because it discusses very current issues of development across the continent.
I believe that the station will continue to promote the overall development of Africa, particularly in the tertiary education sector.
AAU TV provides a platform and shares a lot of information to a broader audience. So we wish you all the best and please continue serving
AAU TV,
the voice of higher education in Africa.
Hey, so this is Dishant from